You are entering a world that makes no sense whatsoever. A dimension of ignorance, fraud, and deceit. Your only hope of survival is the Dickbag Patrol.
Recently, Chille released a short video of himself driving while live streaming again, testing the waters. I see you, Chille, and you better cut that shit out, you little weasel. I thought we had a deal. You'd stop doing it, and I'd stop busting your tiny little testicles about it. What's the matter? Having withdrawals? Is it just killing you? Doing the right thing for once? Are you trying to show us all who's boss? That's pathetic, man. Really pathetic. But that's not what this video is about. Recently, a subscriber sent me a very interesting Reddit post, allegedly from someone who grew up in the same Alaskan town as our intrepid law scholar. He shares some fascinating details about their childhood, as well as some subsequent encounters with Chille over the years. Now, I guess this is kind of old, some of you may have heard this before, but I had not, and I thought it was well worth sharing. Now, it is Reddit, so it could be bullshit. True or false, it's quite an amazing tale. It certainly makes a lot of sense given what I know about Chille. If it is concocted, it is a masterful fake. Decide for yourself. Either way, it's entertaining as hell. So here we go with stories of growing up with Chille DeCastro must include his bedwetting issues, filed under elderly narcissist. Growing up in Alaska, Chille DeCastro was known as Chipito and B-dubs for his chronic bedwetting, even into high school. I'm new to Reddit and joined just to read and contribute to this section. A Reddit regular has given me some tips like the TLDR thingy above, but either way, please be gentle. After spending the long Labor Day 2023 weekend in Soldotna, my best friends cajoled me into telling this story of growing up with Jose Chille DeCastro and how he almost sued me later in life over wetting the bed. A lot. As a kid, small town summers in Alaska are the best, hands down. Non-stop fun and light for 18 hours a day, always outside. A group of 6 or 7 of us ran in a tight pack, but there was always some mother pushing us to include Chille, but never his own. When we were about 10 or 11 years old, one of us had a birthday sleepover. It was that night that we learned Chille was a chronic bedwetter and had destroyed my friend's borrowed Spider-Man sleeping bag. It was also the beginning of a long road of bedwetting events at other birthdays, a school overnight, and even an overnight for a wrestling match our freshman year. That earned him a lot of grief. Coming of age in the late 80s and early 90s was sink or swim. Bullying was not the national code red crisis that it is today. Back then it was called growing up, so the nicknames ensued. Chipito hung forever and morphed into BW/B-dubs and Chille de Bedwetter in high school. At times I wanted to feel bad for him. A lot of us did. But he always found a way to erase those feelings of empathy within my group of friends. He was a really difficult kid to like, and easy to forget when we all headed south. Fast forward to summer 2012, my dad was recovering from surgery and my family needed help with the business during the tourist season. One rainy morning, I finished a long run from my parents' place into town. I had my music in my ears and stopped into the coffee shop. I was probably thumbing through my BlackBerry when out of nowhere, Chille walks up and punches me jovially on the shoulder. "Hey B-dub, Chille, how are ya?" I stammered. The name B-dubs was so ingrained in my head, and the off-guard surprise of seeing a much tanner and older-looking Chille threw me off. Chille lost his mind. He went into a vicious rant that those bedwetting events were 100 years ago, and that he was now both a tech startup CEO and a major TV star. Titles and success aside, he was the same Chillito to me, just a lot more orange. But now I thought we might fight. Then out of nowhere, he spun off the planet into another more teary-eyed rant about a fellow high school classmate who was bullying his mother and trying to kill her. While intriguing, I never got another word in. He walked off in a blubbery mess. A few days later, I ran into that murderous, bullying classmate. She was now a single mom who had recently found love, and yet still held so many of her sweet, fresh-to-the-world qualities that I remembered of her in high school. I shared my B-dub story with her only to learn of her experiences with Chille, and his threats of potentially having to deal with Chille, one of his father's South American hitmen. Her situation was legit and easily 10 times worse. You can read about her situation and nearly all of B-Dub's threats in a public legal records archive that is both free and 100% dedicated to Chille. Then the public documents website, which if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check out. It has Chille's entire non-existent criminal history in black and white. While not ever landing a Power Rangers TV part, about a week later, my own success in life found me sitting in the seat 3F, the last row window seat of first class on an Alaska Airlines 737 from Anchorage to Seattle. Out of nowhere, again, Chille is abruptly leaning over my anonymous elderly seatmate and trying to get into my face. I was debating what to do about you, blank, but now that I see you're sitting up here, I will definitely be suing you and your whole family for defamation and psychological injury. You're suing me because I'm in first class, Chille? I asked. This wasn't smart of me. Editorial note. That's exactly what I would have said to him. He turned even more Mandarin and started to snarl something else, but the buildup of passengers behind him ended the interaction for the moment. I laughed it off, but my seatmate, not so much, so we traded places. Later in the flight, he tried to come up to first class to use the bathroom, but we were mid-meal service and the flight attendant sent him to the back of the plane. I truly hope he made it to the lavatory on time. Call me whatever you like, but when we landed, I traded further discussions with Chille for some fish and chips and a beer in the Seattle airport. Another editorial note, that sounds like a good choice. 11 years have passed along with any/all statute of limitations. It wasn't until I went home this past weekend that these stories, and much more, all came back out, and I learned how internet infamous Chille B-Dubs DeCastro has become. And to those who are bothered or upset by DeCastro, take heart that his follow-through, ability to work hard, and finding success paths are not his thing. Whatever empathy or even sympathy he might draw out of a crowd of people or group always implodes by his own doing. Like a balloon, he is mostly air with some injected latex. In case you are wondering, peeing the bed is not how you drop weight for wrestling. And no, he never competed in the state wrestling championships. He pissed those opportunities away. B-Dubs, if you see this, just remember that being a dick, controlling your dick, and wearing a dick sock are all mutually exclusive. Wow. Well, given what I know about Chille, this all makes perfect, pathetic sense. Again, if somebody made this up, they did an incredible job. I mean, you almost feel sorry for the little squirt. Oh, sorry, that was insensitive. But to paraphrase the Redditor, you start to pity Chille, and then he goes and says something disgustingly sexist or racist, or endangers everyone's lives with his distracted driving, or straight up wishes bone cancer on children. Your personality really sucks, Chille, just to let you know. Speaking of that, let's see if this bedwetting tale might have something to do with that. I think it's time for a little chat GPT AI Chille sesh. You ready, little buddy?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. What kind of effect can being taunted about chronic bedwetting as a young adult have on a person later in life as an adult?
Being taunted about chronic bedwetting as a young adult can have various psychological and emotional effects on a person later in life as an adult. These effects can include 1. Low self-esteem. Constant taunting and teasing can lead to a diminished sense of self-worth, causing the person to doubt their abilities and value. 2. Anxiety and depression. Enduring taunts can contribute to anxiety and depression, as individuals may experience ongoing stress and feelings of shame. 3. Social isolation. Fear of humiliation may cause the person to withdraw from social activities, leading to isolation and difficulty forming relationships. 4. Emotional scars. Emotional scars from childhood can persist into adulthood, affecting one's emotional well-being and self-perception. 5. Coping mechanisms. Some individuals may develop unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as substance abuse, as a way to deal with the emotional pain. It's important to note that the impact of taunting can vary from person to person, and not everyone will experience these effects to the same degree. Seeking support from a mental health professional can be beneficial in addressing and overcoming the psychological consequences of childhood taunting.
Okay, so that's all well and good. but I think we need to establish how that might manifest itself in the behaviors Chille displays as an adult. So, just taking the first effect listed about bedwetting, low self-esteem, let's ask ChatGPT another question. Can low self-esteem lead a person to become a raging narcissist?
Low self-esteem can lead to a person developing narcissistic traits, but it does not necessarily guarantee that someone will become a raging narcissist. Narcissism is a complex personality trait with various dimensions, and it exists on a spectrum. Some people may exhibit narcissistic tendencies without meeting the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, while others may have NPD, which is characterized by a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, a need for excessive admiration, and a lack of empathy. Individuals with low self-esteem might be more susceptible to developing narcissistic traits as a defense mechanism or coping strategy to mask their insecurities. Here's how this dynamic can work. 1. Compensatory behavior. Some individuals with low self-esteem may compensate by projecting an overly confident and self-absorbed facade. They may seek external validation and admiration from others to bolster their fragile self-esteem. 2. Defensive mechanism. Narcissistic behavior can serve as a defense mechanism to protect the individual from the pain of feeling inadequate. By behaving in a narcissistic manner, they shield themselves from confronting their underlying low self-esteem. 3. Seeking validation. People with low self-esteem may rely on others to constantly validate their worth, which can manifest as narcissistic behavior when they demand attention and admiration from others. 4. Lack of empathy. A common trait in narcissism is a lack of empathy. Individuals with low self-esteem who exhibit narcissistic traits may struggle to connect with others' emotions because they are preoccupied with their own insecurities and need for validation. It's important to note that not everyone with low self-esteem will develop narcissistic traits, and not all narcissistic traits indicate a personality disorder. Narcissism exists on a spectrum, and the development of narcissistic traits is influenced by a combination of factors, including genetics, upbringing, and life experiences. If you or someone you know is struggling with self-esteem or narcissistic tendencies that are causing difficulties in personal relationships or well-being, it can be helpful to seek the support of a mental health professional who can provide guidance and assistance in addressing these issues.
Well, that certainly sounds like the Chille we all know and loathe. By the way, why is it whenever I ask ChatGPT questions about Chille, it inevitably ends with a recommendation to seek help from a mental health professional? Why is that? I'm definitely not condoning these kids razzing Chille about his bedwetting, if it's true. Despite the fact that I find Chille to be one of the most ridiculously hateful, deeply disturbed individuals I've ever encountered, and if the tables were turned, I have no doubt he would not be so gracious. So, a reminder, I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist, but I feel on pretty firm ground saying Chille suffers from severe narcissistic personality disorder. Hey, sue me, Chille. I actually think it would be more accurate to say other people suffer as a result of Chille's narcissistic personality disorder. And again, my intent is not to make sport of Chille's alleged bedwetting. I just think it's fascinating trying to figure out what led him to become the vile and repugnant little gnome he is today. But guess what? You're a big boy now, Chille, so try acting like one. Deal with your childhood trauma like an adult. Get some therapy, and stop foisting your mental problems on everyone you meet. This group of strangers have known you for all of 10 minutes, and they already pegged you for an asshole.
You ever notice how you run into I'm just gonna say an asshole in the morning, you run into one morning, noon, and night? You might be that person. Good day.
I mean, how many towns do you have to get run out of on a rail before you take the hint? If everyone you meet is an asshole, you're probably the asshole.
If you speak, you...
Too bad we don't tar and feather people anymore. Something tells me that would be a permanent look for you. One thing's for sure, Chille, you better stop driving like an asshole. Just stay parked. That way you can wave your arms around and yammer to your heart's content about your trifold. And now I guess your new product, the 5A card. There's nothing like desperation to fuel foolish ingenuity, I always say. Anything to add, AI Chille?
Hey, real Chille, I'm sorry you were bullied as a child, but come on, man. Give up your delusions of grandeur and get yourself some mental help. And like the man says, whatever you do, stay parked, asshole.